Joining me now, Senator Roy Blunt, Republican of Missouri. Senator, nice to see you and have you on. I have you as having voted yes today on this agreement. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. That's right. Are you willing to tell me right now that your side won? Did the Republicans win this, sir? And if not, why not?
I think where my side won was we changed the way we do business on the issue of how we're spending money and the whole question of accumulated debt. And in fact, there's some figures out there that would indicate if every time the debt ceiling comes up over the next few years, we'd have an equal 10-year pay for every dollar in debt ceiling increase, that we'd have the budget balanced in a decade. There's really no other comparable plan out there that quite gets that done that quickly. So I think in changing the discussion, we won. But you know, the fact is that my side controls 1/3 of the three-part process it takes to get a bill to become law in Washington. And I thought everybody was a little slow in realizing that at the end of the day, nobody was going to be completely happy with this process.
But you do agree that it was slow.
Like the majority leader, I think it could have been better, but I think it could have been a whole lot worse if you think about where the president and the administration started. Straight debt limit increase, revenue increases as part of that, things that my side didn't want, and things that today didn't happen.
Well, let's look ahead here. As Joe Johns and I were just talking about this super committee, I know a lot of your fellow Republicans are worried about this debt cutting committee, and specifically the notion that if they fail, you know, we go straight to hundreds of billions of dollars in military cuts. Senator Blunt, does that worry you?
Well, it worries me. It's the number one priority of the federal government to defend the country. But I've been of the view that everything has to be on the table. And if the military can justify everything they're doing, they're the only part of the federal government that can justify absolutely everything they're doing. There's a reason that those triggers are what they are, to try to encourage this committee to come up with a report and to come up with a recommendation that the Congress then has to vote for. And frankly, I think the structure of the committee, which was initially proposed by Harry Reid, the Democrat leader in the Senate. I'm a Republican, but I think the committee structure is the way that we can do some big things with divided government.
Right, I know.
And divided government's the best time to deal with big issues.
Forgive me for interrupting. I do just want to give a bigger picture, if I may step back. You know, since we're talking military, we're talking about cutting the debt here. I want to look at something together. Sir, I don't know if you have a monitor or you can look at this. I know our viewers certainly can. Look at this pie. So the United States of America, our military budget here accounts for 43%. See the dark purple on the right side? 43% of all military spending in the world. So this is military spending. This is in 2010 here. United States of America, close to $700 billion. You see there below the U.S., China. Our closest competitor is China. They're in a whole different ballpark. I mean, just look at the differentiation in the numbers. You have $695 billion versus $114 billion. So why is it so necessary for the U.S. to spend so much more on the military than anyone else around the world?
Well, I think you see what happens when the U.S. isn't involved in a leadership way. Look what's happening in Libya. NATO, supposedly the greatest military alliance of all time, and in about 11 weeks they're saying we're out of ammunition. The United States has carried, without any question, more than its share of the load. At the same time, we can't get our allies to step up to the plate and do what they need to do. But I do think we can look at everything the military is doing. Let's be sure the money we are spending is being spent wisely, and that's probably more important than evaluating how much we're spending compared to what everybody else is spending, in my view, of the number one obligation of the federal government, and that's to defend the country.
Also from the government, hearing the president speaking from the Rose Garden this morning, I just kept hearing the word jobs. You know, the president says it's time to turn the corner, right, and get back to job creation. A lot of Americans want to hear that as well. But with an election looming now, come next November, does your party have any incentive to help him win with the economy, with job creation, or not?
Well, sure. I think that by the time now that this economy would respond, there'll be the next president, whether it's this person in a second term or the next president. The president's policies have so slowed the economy down. There were literally hundreds of new regulations from these various government regulators in the last month.
But you're a party, sir.
Every one of them has discouraged private sector job creation, and the president's going to pay the price for that, I think, because of the way the economy is.
But will your
ground to
party
a
jump
halt.
in and help create jobs, or do you want
Yes,
the president
yes.
down the road to just take the blame?
First of all, the federal government doesn't create private sector jobs very effectively, if at all. Secondly, we ought to be doing everything we can. That's the number one goal right now. What do we do to encourage more private sector job creation? And we are very much on the side of that. Doesn't matter who gets the credit. But frankly, it's the middle of 2011. By the time this machine would really grind into place, it's going to be well into next year before you see any recovery from all the regulation, all the talk of higher utility bills and higher taxes has ground the economy to a place that I think the president is rightly concerned that he's going to get the responsibility for that.
I think that concern resonates obviously with a lot of Americans, including I'm sure your own constituents. Senator Roy Blunt, thank you so much.
Thank you.